However you are and whenever you are, welcome back, good souls, to Coffee and UFOs. Cheers to you all. I hope you've got a good brew with you tonight. We've got a great guest with us tonight, Marc D'Antonio. He is MUFON's chief photo video analyst. And he's been on the podcast in the past, and I absolutely love Marc. He is one of the best communicators of science and of the UFO UAP phenomena. So I'm sure you will enjoy this episode tonight. As a friendly reminder, if you like this podcast, Coffee and UFOs, please do follow wherever you listen to podcasts and give it a good review. All those positive reviews really help with the growing of the podcast, and it shows. And the same thing here on YouTube. If you watch on YouTube, please give a like and a subscribe, and share your thoughts on what we're going to talk about tonight, because we're going to cover the gamut of asteroids, egg-shaped UAPs, and NHI, and of course all things astronomy. Marc's got a lot going on, so it's really exciting. Please follow on Threads at Coffee and UFOs podcast. That's a new tag. And on Instagram at Coffee and UFOs podcast. And on X, you can follow on at paranormal_now. And on Blue Sky, you can follow at Coffee and UFOs. There's just so many. It's ridiculous. So I'm trying to concentrate my posts on, one or two of those platforms, but it's hard because everyone's kind of spread out now. So it's not like before where, you can kind of just pick two and stick with it. So let me know actually where you spend most of your time, because that'll actually kind of help me to know where I should post updates and show descriptions for you guys. I've got some other stuff I'm working on myself that I can't wait to share with you. Still, taking away at it, but we're getting there. And then I'll be able to post more on social media, but really cool stuff. And especially if you have a little bit of an ire towards debunkers, I think you'll appreciate where I'm going. All right, let's bring on our special guest, Marc D'Antonio. Marc, welcome back, brother. How are you?
Alan, how are you, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming back. It's been a long time.
Yeah, but can't wait to, I had people, they called me the other day and said, "You gotta be on Coffee and UFOs." I went, "Yeah, how'd you know?"
That's awesome.
Because you announced
it.
Well,
that's how popular you are. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You announced that. It's nice. So it's good to see you. How you been?
I'm good. Thank you. And I know you've got a lot going on, and we'll jump into that because I'm sure you'd love to share about your astronomical work and the telescope, and you're out there in the Midwest right now. But really quick, for those who may not be too familiar with you, Marc D'Antonio is the Mutual UFO's chief photo video analysis. He is also CEO of FX Models, a model making and special effects company specializing in digital physical models and organic special effects in the film industry. He has done extensive work in the film and television arena, appearing regularly on a number of networks. His efforts creating UFOTOG 2, a remote UFO detection system with Douglas Trumbull, promises to bring ufology into the 21st century, and he's been on just numerous television programs. So what's the latest with your astronomical work?
Oh, thanks, Al. First of all, the UFOTOG system, that sort of ground to a halt because Doug Trumbull passed away.
So it's not
unexpectedly, okay. But Avi Loeb is continuing some of that work, and he has the Galileo project, which is sort of in a similar vein that like we were doing, and I've done a presentation to the Galileo team and so forth. And because of my remote observatory experience, I'm pretty sure that they made it pretty clear that when they start to do the deployments of these telescopes they're building, that they're gonna have me come in and help with that, because I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing to use science to try and detect high technology in use in our skies over our head,
Yeah.
But I'm in Benson, Arizona tomorrow, but I'm in Mesa right now at the headquarters for Sky Tour Livestream.
Yeah.
Sky Tour is our, basically we say it's the universe live in real time. We basically provide a live stream of the universe, and we, as an astronomer, I show people what we're looking at. I talk about it, tell them what we're doing. I give them an education about what we're looking at, and they get questions. And so during lunar eclipses, we've had upwards of 5,000 people watching at the same time. Not a huge amount when it comes to like a rocket launch or something, but that's good for us. And then
Yeah.
we capture some really cool things. Now we're putting a new telescope in a second observatory tomorrow, and it's out in the on the back here. And I gave you a preview before we went on the air.
I did. I
And
got a behind the scenes look.
you
Thank you.
got it, yeah. And we're right now. I have it trained on the moon, and there's going to be
Yeah.
some people coming over here after we're done, and we're going to do a little kind of a skywatch type thing with this new telescope, which is sitting out there, and it's in final testing. That's its final test tonight, and then tomorrow we pack it up and drive it, down to Benson, Arizona, and we're going to deploy it in a building on a mountaintop where there's 10 observatories, okay? And they're numbered 0 through 9, and we're getting building 0, okay? And all the rest of the buildings are occupied by other professional astronomers. So I will be in good company, and it's going to be kind of cool. But I'm not going to be in that building, as most people know. I live in Connecticut, on the other side of the country, and that's 2,600 miles away.
Right.
And I run both observatories coming up. I run the current one out in the Sonoran Desert here, which is southwest of Wickenburg. I run that one from Connecticut remotely, and we're going to run the second one from Connecticut remotely as well. And we can run it from anywhere.
And that's the greatest thing about modern technology,
Isn't
isn't
it?
it? Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
like I guess you probably could have done it 15 years ago, but it would have been really expensive.
Yeah, it would have taken a lot of money and a lot of time, a lot of development, a lot of new technologies. And I can't say that this was easy, because it wasn't. I spent a year working on getting the first telescope up and running, and I had it running on my front lawn first. I had this gigantic dome on my front lawn in my house.
I remember you posting those images. So anyone listening, I would definitely go to Facebook, and you can follow Mark there. Is it Sky Tour Radio Facebook page? Is that the page?
Yeah, there's the Sky Tour live stream Facebook page.
Yeah.
But our portal, where everyone can see some of our history and see the links to the latest and go see all the greatest stuff, because we give it away. We give it away, all the images we take.
You do.
Yes.
It's amazing, and it's gorgeous, and the resolution that you showed me before the moon was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this. We'll get more into the UFOs and UAP thing. But have you heard about the asteroid 2024 YR that they're now saying has a 1 in chance of nicking the Earth, and one in 43 chance in nicking the Earth in 2023?
Well, it's a 1.2% chance. Okay. And so that means 99% that it will miss. And we've had other typical things. Now, this asteroid is anywhere from 30 to about 100 feet across. It's really not that big, but it's nothing that would make an extinction event on the planet. But it would reach the ground if it were to strike the Earth. Pieces of it would reach the ground and cause a localized disaster in that area.
Right. But so just for the layperson like myself, I hear 1 in 43. That sounds just way too high to not be concerned.
Well, yeah, I didn't hear the number 1 in 43. I think that 1 in 43 is, that's not 1.2%.
It's much higher, right? So, but let's just say it is 1.2%, and wherever this article maybe got it wrong, that's a lot, right? I mean, that's
1.2%. Yeah, I mean, okay, for instance, Apophis, which is another asteroid that is going to breeze by us in next year? Okay, is it 2026? I think I forgot, but Apophis is going to, it was rumored to be one of these ones that was going to kill us. It was going to, race into the Earth and destroy all life on Earth. Oh heavens! Okay, excuse me. That's a bad thing, of course. However, upon refinement of the Apophis orbit, we discovered that this asteroid was not going to hit the Earth at all. Now, it was going to be closer to the Earth than other asteroids have been, but it's not going to hit the Earth. We can get that pretty accurately because in our telescope with SkyTour Livestream, we've actually followed asteroids right across the sky dynamically that were passing between the Earth and the Moon. Okay, as they passed through Earth's orbit, they passed right through the space between the Earth and the Moon. And with that telescope, you can literally watch it moving this fast on the screen.
Yeah.
And that's an asteroid about 40 feet across, passing between the Earth and the Moon. You know, so people say that's close. Well, yeah, if you look at it from that perspective, that's really close.
Right.
But the question is, why didn't we see it before? The answer is because it's so small. Okay, if it was a massive asteroid, we would have seen it for a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a size of, say, a quarter mile or half mile,
like an
size.
Armageddon movie style. Yeah,
yeah. We would have seen it years ago, and we'd know. You know, we haven't seen it though.
Do you think that getting the hype up for fear of these things is kind of like trying to get funding for someone's pet project? You know, the anti-asteroid project at some university, or
you know that they do that.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah, but I don't think in this case it is, because this asteroid is actually going to be close, but no cigar. It's not going to hit us. You know,
okay, that's good.
The orbital elements have fleshed out to the point where they can actually see that it's going to miss the Earth.
Will you be able to track this when that time comes in 2032?
If it's in the northern hemisphere and in the nighttime sky, yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's not, we won't.
Right. What we can do right now is we can talk about the Jake Barber interview on Ross Coulthart's series, and the egg-shaped UFO, which is a really fascinating video that many of us have seen at this point. And you said that you've done some work on it, some analysis.
Yeah, our photo analysis team with the Mutual UFO Network consists of 6 people, and we work in a vacuum when it comes to these things. We don't collaborate. We do our own independent analyses, and so between 5 or 6, can't remember exactly how many of them weighed in. I think we got 6 people that weighed in this time on our team. And of the people that weighed in, 6 out of 6 said that they felt it was a hoax, and that included me. Oh, now, really? There's a lot of reasons for that. Yeah, and I can go through a number of the reasons with you and tell you. Now, first of all, let's look at the video just as it comes in. It's an egg-shaped UFO object, UAP, wrapped in what looks like a net, a cargo net. Right. All right. Now, this object in the cargo net is also being suspended by a helicopter from a cable. Now, when I first looked at this video, because of my rather good understanding of night vision equipment and other things, I looked at this video and said, that's not real night vision.
It's a different kind of green, right?
Well, even if, let's say, it wasn't, the contrast and the appearance on the ground was too stark between the shaded areas. You see how areas of dark and light are across the ground there?
Yeah, okay. I always thought that maybe that was like a low pixelation issue.
Yeah, let's even if it was, okay, look at the shadow. The shadow isn't low pixelation. You can actually see that the shadow is a rather sharp-edged shadow. Now, the question is, if this was being dropped down, there's several things wrong with this picture, and if you could just leave it up here, this is good.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. The idea is that we're looking from a down-looking camera on the helicopter, and you see the cable right there in the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, that's not where a downward-looking camera would be located on a helicopter. And the reason is because the cable, being so close to the cable, it would block a lot of what's going on, and the camera would not have visibility of all of the scenes. So the cameras would be further away. Okay, number one. Number two, you can hear sound. You hear the sound of the helicopter.
Yeah.
Well, these technical cameras don't have sound. They're just visual cameras only. They don't have any kind of sound. If you can imagine, those cameras would pick up lots of sound, lots of wind, lots of rumbling.
Yeah.
And if it was a helicopter, it'd be going, be a constant din of noises. So that was, in my view, something that was very suspicious.
So you were able to get something out of the audio from that?
Yeah, the audio was, the fact that the audio was there at all is a problem. These cameras like this don't have audio. Now look at that green. Okay, notice that sharp contrast in there, okay, and the sharp shadow. Okay, where's the personnel? Why isn't it being dropped at a base? Why is it being dropped in a quote-unquote field? Okay.
Right. There are a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so I figured, okay, well, let's say there was a searchlight just outside the view, right? And it was creating this stark shadow on this thing.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the object and you look at the shadow has a certain length. The length of the shadow is directly proportional to the height of the object and the height of the light that's aiming at it.
Yes.
So we know the size of the object roughly, okay? And the shadow length kind of gives away the fact that the light was rather high in the air and not moving. Looking at this thing, because it's not at the height of the helicopter, but it's lower than the height of the so-called helicopter. And it's on an angle that puts the light probably 30 or so or 35 degrees off the ground from the position of this egg. Okay? Yeah. So what this told me was this either is a massive searchlight tower in the middle of a field, which makes no sense, or it's not really a searchlight. Maybe it's the sun, and this was filmed outside, and this is just a night vision filter, which would make sense because that green color is so stark contrast in the darks. You wouldn't expect that, you know.
Now, would this be a reason to use a night filter to obfuscate its origin, or to kind of hide, like if they're afraid of revealing something else about the video because they're not supposed to release it, or do you see like maybe there's a legit motive there?
Not really, because you can see a lot of detail in the image. Anyway, you can see lots of detail in the surrounding terrain, and whether it was day or night, okay, it doesn't really matter, you know, to me. And the other thing you have to wonder is, okay, they're lowering this down in the field. Where's all the personnel? Why is it in a field and not on a military base? What's going on here? That doesn't make any sense at all. So none of the givens of this make any sense to me. And so I wrote all that stuff down. Okay. And, you know, Dennis Vermuth and other folks on our team, Seth Weinstein on my team, they all looked at this and they did their own independent analysis, which I insist on. Okay. And they all came up with the fact that all these things I just told you, many of them mentioned those things and said, we believe it's a hoax. And I said, yeah, it's interesting because so did I. And Bob Spearing at MUFON, you know, took all of our reports, and he basically really saw that the consensus was it was a hoax. Then something came out that said, oh, wait, this was just a recreation of the event. Wait a minute. This was being passed off as the event.
Well, okay, so the initial interview, they actually didn't make any claim to the video, right? They just kind of played it like B-roll, right? And then Ross Coulthart had kind of commented on the egg-shaped craft, but there was no provenance given at all.
Yeah, but it ended up being allowed to become the event. And this object was a hoax event. So that means that this event has no more standing than someone else who comes along and says, hey, look what I saw.
Okay, so, but if we're given a source for this, would that help? Or do you think, because what would be the reason to stage such a thing? I wonder.
Oh, well, there's a million reasons to do that. I mean, We can talk about the government planting misinformation, but that's not what this is, I don't think.
It doesn't feel like misinformation to
No,
me.
we could also, we could talk about people who want to get lucrative contracts, and that has happened. Okay, but I don't know what this is here for this guy. I don't even know who Jake Barber is, to be honest. And for the people that have actually seen UAPs, it's interesting that when we looked at this, several of the investigators actually calculated the proportions of the egg and found that it was actually the exact proportions of a chicken egg.
No.
which is kind of interesting.
But look, I will give it this. It's I don't think it's a balloon. I think a bunch of other people have noticed that it doesn't really like compress when it hits the ground. The string wrapping around it doesn't push in on the balloon material. So it's something hard for sure.
It has to be something heavy so that they could, if they want to perpetrate a hoax, they're going to put something heavy there.
Right.
And they could have sculpted it out of plaster for all we know, and then, shellacked it and shined it up, or done it. It could be some other type of, object.
So what have you heard of where it's coming? It's come from the video.
I just heard that this was something that Ross Coulthard put on his show, and that Jake Barber was this so-called whistleblower. I don't know what it means.
So there's still no additional information as to the provenance of the video?
No, not at all. Not as far as I can tell, not as far as I know. After I saw this video and realized what it was, and our team decided it was a hoax, we just set it on the side and said, if more comes out, we'll look at it. But for now, we're going to call it a hoax because that's what we think it is.
Wow. Okay.
And I know. Not good for the show. I realize. I'm sorry.
No, but I'm surprised it's not in the gray basket. But that you're settling on hoax for now.
Yeah, but what the thing is, all right. I learned a long time ago that we really can't be arrogant about this, right? We have to allow for other possibilities that we ourselves may not believe at the time. So right now, although I think it's a hoax, I have put it aside and set it aside so that if more information comes forward,
right,
or some add-on to the video comes forward, we'll be able to re-investigate. Because I'm always willing to do this, because I do believe that there's alien life here that's found us. I mean, from a scientific point of view, as a science guy, I'll tell you right now, I think they are here. I've had experiences I can't explain. In fact, one of the experiences I had might bring me to Congress to testify to Congress too. I found out, a couple of weeks ago that my name is being bandied around as someone to come testify, and that has to do with the USO, the unknown submerged object. I was on a submarine as a guest decades ago, and somebody came roaring through the sonar at several hundred miles an hour underwater, and it made very little sound, but enough to be heard on the sonar. And it was a very interesting trace that it left. It was what's called a transient. It came and it went, and the kid on the sonar had no idea what it was, and he had his hands out when he told the executive officer, he said, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to say, sir.
Yeah.
And the guy said, okay, log it and dog it. And the kid went, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. And went back to work. And, me, I was a big shot on the boat. I was invited to go on this boat. I'm a big shot, Alan. Yeah, you know where this is going. And I went up to the XO and I said, sir, I know what these things might be. Is there anything I can help you with? He says, D'Antonio, correct? Sir, yes, sir. You having a good trip so far? Sir, yes, sir. Let's keep it that way. And he walked away. So, yeah.
Right. That's a classic response to that sort of situation. And it actually makes sense to me that if you're going to do another hearing, that they would focus on USOs.
Yeah, because they're actually, every Navy's reported them. It's not just the U.S. and it's not
just the Air Force. Yeah.
No, it's underwater too. In fact, one of my most popular lectures I talk about, I've been doing this all over the country, is one about dimensional travel and how using modern science, we can explain how UFOs actually may be working.
Yeah.
And every observed characteristic of a UFO in the sky can be explained by the use of this technology. And it's not a reach, it's not a stretch. It's almost too obvious, as a matter of fact. You know?
And let me ask you about this while we're on kind of the explanation subject. I read this past summer, there was a paper that came out. Scientists proposed that they think they have a natural explanation for Foo Fighters. World War II pilots were reporting, and other pilots beyond that. We've heard like, oh, maybe ball lightning in the past, but what they were saying is that there's actually a legit phenomena where balls of plasma can be attracted to charged objects. So as the jet pilots move around, the plasma balls actually would follow them and give the appearance of like an intelligence. What do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, we define plasma. Okay, plasma is an atom that's had its electrons stripped off, and not just protons. And it takes high temperatures to get this ionization to occur, and high levels of radiation to get these electrons to bounce off the atom and leave the atom behind for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, the remaining protons in the nucleus of this atom are now rolling around out there, running around, and that's plasma. That's what we define as plasma. That's what we see when we look at the sun. Everything you see in the sky about the sun, the disk of the sun you see with dark sunglasses or whatever, that is all plasma you're looking at. And in the core of the sun, which is only about 15% of the center of the mass of the center of that size of that sun in the sky, that little 15%, that's the only place where actual fusion that makes the energy that we enjoy so much actually occurs. The rest is just along for the ride. And it's because it's so hot that as that energy moves out, it rips the electrons off of these atoms, and it makes now these really hot protons running around, and hot electrons rolling around, and that's plasma. So that's what plasma is. So a plasma ball as a self-cohesive object in the sky, well, there's definitely a scientific basis for that. As you mentioned, ball lightning. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember a story my father told me about lightning coming through the keyhole of the door and sputtering around on the floor and then going away. Yeah. That may have been ball lightning. Okay, and it left sinuous little tracks of burn. So it's very hot. Okay, and it's charged. You're right. Okay, it's +1 charge. So that's a bunch of hot protons, which are all +1 charge. Okay, electrons are -1 charge. When the electrons are in the atom, there's no charge because they're equal.
So it's kind of like a hungry ball of light.
Yeah, and if you have a negative charge, the +1 charges will follow you.
Yeah.
So I'm just offering this as a follow-up, just as I'm thinking, if you have an aircraft flying through the sky and it's flying through moisture, whatever, moist air, it's going to end up generating a static charge. We've seen on airliners the greenish glow that surrounds the wings sometimes. And the pilots in the cockpit see these spider strands coming up the windows, saying almost fire. Static discharge, right?
Right.
Well, okay, that's charge. And that charge could attract other charges. And maybe that could happen. So it's not a bad thought. And I reserve the right to say that this is a possibility, but I can't say it's the only possibility.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters might actually be UFOs too, but
it might be both. You don't know.
Both things can be true.
Right, exactly. This technology that you're talking about, is this a charged technology? What are we talking about?
No, actually, this is very different. This is technology that has to do with generating certain types of particles. And these certain types of particles are particles that were found in the 1920s, okay, or theorized in the 1920s. And CERN, overseas at the Large Hadron Collider, has a detector called ATLAS. That's all caps ATLAS. Okay. And ATLAS detected these particles when it was running. So it's not like these particles don't exist. They do. Now, what are the particles? Well, they're called Kaluza-Klein particles. K-A-L-U-Z-A, Kaluza-Klein, K-L-E-I-N. Kaluza-Klein particles are particles that, once generated, all right, have some rather peculiar potential characteristics. Among them, they are they generate what we would call gravitons in the theory. Now, we know about light being a wave and a particle, a photon and a wave and a photon of light. When I was getting my degree in astronomy, I counted photons on a photometer, which detected light from a star, and I used that to make determinations about the stars. Well, the particular particle we're talking about, right, is not like light. Apparently, we only know we know light has, like I said, a photon, particle, and a wave nature. That's a dual nature. Electrons are dual nature. You can describe them with an equation. You can describe them as a particle, an electron particle. Okay, but you can't describe gravity, can you? You can say gravity has waves now because we saw them. Ripples in space-time. Two black holes collide. Sends out this ripple like on the surface of a pond, but three-dimensionally spherical in all directions. Okay, that is a gravitational wave. So what's left is the gravitational particle, the graviton. That's the elusive thing we haven't found yet. However, the Kaluza-Klein particle in the theory does exist as a particle of gravity, known as a graviton, and as a wave. Well, we know gravity is a wave now, so maybe the Kaluza-Klein graviton exists, and if it does, it's about 10 to the 16th times more powerful than the gravitons holding us to our chairs right now. Okay, what does that mean? Now, first of all, when we talk about light, we have to talk about dimensions. Light operates in our 4 dimensions, X, Y, and Z, moving through time. Okay, I'm here right now. If I move here, I'm at a new X, Y, Z coordinate at a slightly later time. Okay, everything we do has to do with moving from one place in X, Y, Z coordinate system in time to a new place, X, Y, Z coordinate in time. Okay, what if I told you that there was a 5th dimension? What if I told you that if you could pop out of these 4 dimensions and go into the 5th dimension, you could enter a place where the universe, the farther in you go into that dimension, the universe shrinks around you. This is the construct known as Randall-Sundrum 1, and it has to do with string theory. So we have to prove string theory on top of everything else, don't we?
That's fun.
Okay? Yeah. So Randall-Sundrum 1 is a construct that allows us to say, well, if we can move into this 5th dimension, right, the universe is really, really compact. The farther in we go, the smaller it gets. So if we go in just a little bit and pop back out, we could go from this particular point to maybe this particular point and not have to travel space in between. That's the
so
key.
you're doing this without the need of warping space-time?
Exactly.
That's okay. So that's the only other alternative I've ever heard of, warping space-time. So this is new.
It is. It is, and it's actually you're gonna love this too, because if you think about this, when you look at how this would work, a UFO has to generate these particles, right? Now, the Kaluza-Klein gravitons, when they're generated, are so powerful they also create micro black holes. Now, micro black holes will do a couple things. They'll eat a little bit of light that might be coming to your eyes otherwise. They'll eat a little bit of the air, and they're going to eat up the gravitons that the Earth is producing. So what they're going to do, by surrounding the UFO, they prevent Earth's gravity from even reaching the UFO, which explains why UFOs sometimes look like fluttering leaves in the wind. Okay, because there's no up or down to them.
Right.
Okay,
right.
so
and they can stop on a dime.
So store that for a moment. And now, when a UFO generates these particles, we also notice something else. Excuse me. And that is that the UFO may shimmer and change colors. That's been reported.
Yes,
hundreds of cases. Well, that's exactly what would happen theoretically if these micro black holes were eating a little bit of the light that's supposedly coming to your eye.
Ah, wow, that's interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Now, let's take it another step further. When you look at a UFO, you see something in the sky, it's here. Then all of a sudden it vanishes and it's here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could say that's the autokinetic effect, where your eyes can't focus on a spot in the sky. And as I said, two things can be true at one time.
Right.
But that could also be something popping out from here, going into the fifth dimension and appearing over here. See? So,
Well, and just in defense of the autokinetic
yeah.
thing is that, yes, that's a real phenomena, but that's more about like when you stare at something and it kind of just moves, right? Because your eyes are constantly adjusting.
Well, it also has to do with this. If you're looking in the sky and you see a flash, you go, oh, there was a flash right there, and you point to it.
Yeah.
The next time you see it, you think it's over here. Okay, because your eyes are dancing around trying to find
it. Yeah.
Because we didn't evolve the need to identify spots in a blank sky
Right.
that are flashing. We developed the need to look for pattern recognition in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
looking for predators, okay, that were trying to eat us when we were evolving. So that was never needed. So our brains are not good at that. So, okay, that said, so there's a healthy supply of autokinetic problems out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a healthy supply of atmospheric scintillation, changing the colors of things near the horizon.
Yep.
What happens when you're looking at something up in the sky and it seems to be changing color, fading in and out on you, and then disappearing and appearing over here? Now all those things together, taken together, those we can't deny the possibility that we're looking at Kaluza-Klein gravitons at play. Now, the final coup de grace, all right? What do you need to create these Kaluza-Klein gravitons? You need a particle accelerator. Now we have one at CERN. It's 20-something miles around, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's how big our accelerators have to be to generate these types of things.
Yeah.
But advanced species might have thought of a way to make the accelerators smaller. And what shape are UFOs?
Disc.
Round.
Yeah.
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 You know why? They're particle accelerators. That's why.
Well, okay. Well,
generating the particles.
Does that explain the black triangles and these other like cigar shaped?
Yes, because you can put a circle nicely inside any
within
triangle.
that triangle. It would just be more compact.
Yeah.
And Rodrigo in comments made a really good point. Said gravitational waves, just like Lazar said, which is interesting. And so if I'm imagining kind of Bob Lazar's description of a craft, right?
Yeah.
But if you have this within a craft, how do you then, like, what mechanisms would you use to navigate?
I'm glad you asked, because first of all, let's say you had this in a craft. Okay, let's go to the energy source, and we'll get to navigation. What do you need to generate these particles? You need a particle accelerator. What do you need to power the accelerator? One heck of a
lot of energy somehow.
Yes,
Yeah,
a lot of energy. And guess what you could use to power it? The technology that looks like it may power such a craft is a fusion reactor,
which we're on the brink of doing ourselves. Right.
Lawrence Livermore created a sustained reaction for the first time. It's a couple years ago. The Chinese just ran a fusion reactor for over 118 seconds. Was it something like that?
Did they break the record?
Yes, that's a record. And sustained reactions are how this is going to work. Now, all right. So now we know that all the things we see in the sky that are being done by these odd things in the sky could be Kaluza-Klein graviton technologies. Yeah. We also know that they have to be generated by a particle accelerator, which explains why UFOs are round. The outer rings are the particle accelerator, and the inner core is where the occupants go.
Yeah.
Okay. They're safe in there. Now, here's another thing, yet another odd coincidence.
We're checking all the boxes tonight.
We have to, because I'm not going to let this go without checking all the boxes. If any one box fails,
then the whole thing falls apart.
We have to reconsider.
Yeah.
But we've heard stories of people touching UFOs, and what happens when they touch them?
Electrical charge.
And you're right.
Well, some people will feel dizzy.
Yes.
What else? I don't know.
Burns.
Oh, sure. Well, if you're even just being close to it will burn you without touching it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you think about, was it Falcon Lake? I mean, that's a.
Yeah. So dizzy, okay, feeling nausea, burns. Guess what those are? Symptoms of radiation, aren't they? Symptoms of radiation poisoning. Now wait, What radiation, Mark? What are you talking about? Well, we have a small 30-foot roughly diameter UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Let's suppose it's a particle accelerator. Let's suppose it's generating these Kaluza-Klein gravitons, which come out, and I'll talk about how they get into the fifth dimension in a minute. But let's suppose they generate these Kaluza-Klein gravitons.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you force charged particles into a circle, you're using bright, really, really highly powerful magnetic fields, aren't you? That cause them to go in a circular path.
Sure. Yep.
They don't want to go in a circular path. They fight it. And when they're fighting it, they fight it by giving off radiation, synchrotron radiation. And that synchrotron radiation is the thing that might be causing nausea, might be causing dizziness, and would definitely be causing radiation burns. So
do we see that with our own generators?
with our
like at CERN, do we see
yes,
this, or okay?
Synchrotron radiation is in all the circular particle accelerators, and they have to manage it. They have to manage it. They're underground for a reason.
So it's not the fusion, because the fusion should be clean, right?
Yeah, it's just that the generation of the particles.
Yeah.
Okay, forcing particles that are charged in a circular path using strong magnetic fields will generate radially away from the path. Okay, will generate in all directions synchrotron radiation. If you have shielding in the core of your ship, you're fine. You're going to be just fine.
Would that be strong enough for, say, something like the Cash Landrum case in Texas?
Possibly, except that one might have been one of ours. That could have been like they got too close to a nuclear plane or a nuclear helicopters. I mean,
right, because I think they were something like 20 feet away, roughly. The car was so hot.
I mean, but yes, that could, and we can't deny the possibility that could have been a Kaluza-Klein encounter. Okay. Or a circular. Now we talked about this fifth dimension, so now we know that everything we see a UFO do can be explained using this Kaluza-Klein phenomenon. Okay. We know that. You want to talk about navigation now, so this is where we come into this. Okay, these 4 dimensions we have, X, Y, and Z, moving through time, describe us on our planet. Everything we've ever done and ever known, every probe we've ever sent out, we sent it from point A to point B by passing through all the points between point A and point B. But if you actually generate these Kaluza-Klein gravitons, there's something we need to understand about gravity. We don't know where the other end of gravity is effectively. What that means is light starts and stops in our 4 dimensions. You shine a flashlight at the wall, it originates in your flashlight, it ends at the wall.
Right.
Okay. All right. So in effect, light can be stopped, it can be reflected, refracted, we can do all kinds of things to it.
And the same thing with matter in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we
particles.
can't do that with gravity. Gravity is pervasive. It goes through every single structure we have. You can't build a cube that you can go inside and have anti-gravity. Gravity goes through everything. So why is that? It's because it may be the other end of gravity may be in this 5th dimension. So when we look for gravitons, one of the problems we have is we're looking in our 4 dimensions for gravitons.
Right.
We can measure gravity in our 4 dimensions, but the other end of gravity, the part that makes the loop, that completes our understanding of gravity, isn't in our 4 dimensions potentially. It might be in this 5th. Now that means that we can calculate gravity, utilize it for our spacecraft, and go all the way out of our solar system with the Voyagers, get on Mars specifically in perfect placement. Okay, send probes to Venus, the Parker probe around the sun, perfectly placed. Okay, we can do all that because we can calculate gravity. We can't reflect it. We can't bend it. We can't harness it in any way, except to utilize it because it's always there. So how can we actually utilize it? We utilize it by understanding its nature. And the nature of it means that we have to look beyond our 4 dimensions. And that's where this 5th dimensional construct in the string theory variation called Randall Syndrome 1, which I mentioned, comes into play. This 5th dimension is this is the place where the Kaluza-Klein gravitons actually live. Okay? I don't mean alive. We know they exist here. So that means we can see them here. But to understand the complete picture, we have to see them here. We can't. So if we generate clues-inclined gravitons around our ship here, because the other end of them exists in this fifth dimension, your ship gets pulled into the fifth dimension because you're surrounded by them. Now, that is why when you look at a UFO, it looks like it shimmers and disappears, and it's truly gone. It'll truly be gone because it's gone into the fifth dimension.
It's almost like being pulled in like a tractor beam.
Exactly. The clues-inclined gravitons exist in this fifth dimension. That's where they're from. Okay. When we generate them here, we're pulling them from this fifth dimension, although we don't know it. And so then they pull us into the fifth dimension. And if you go in far enough, I'll give you an example. You travel 12 inches outside. You go through 1 through 12 inches of measurement, and they're exactly 12 inches you travel. Okay. We can do that in our 4 dimensions. Go in the fifth dimension. Okay. Go in just a little bit more, just a tiniest bit in, and you travel 12 inches in there. When you come out, that 12 inches will have expanded to maybe 24 inches. Okay? Because remember, the universe is more compressed inside. The farther in you go, the more compressed.
So even though the universe is compressed, you are not like physically compressed. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And there's another reason for that, which we may not have time to get to, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just don't want us to turn into jam, if we try to test this technology out.
Yeah, and basically the way it works is you have to oscillate back and forth between the fourth dimension and the fifth in order to stay intact, and that has benefits.
Wow,
that has benefits. Yeah. Well, look, your fusion reactor just goes on autopilot.
Yeah,
and it just continues to generate these particles, right? Goes in and out of the fifth dimension, and then you're good.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if this is a thing, would a directed radar beam affect this technology? Because we often suspect that maybe in the 40s, especially, these UFOs that were crashed or taken down either by accident or purposefully were done so by radar.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, yes, let's pursue that. Let's keep in mind that, let's say they're oscillating back and forth. That means that they're neither here nor there for any appreciable amount of time, but they are here for some portion of time, and they're doing it fast. The frequency, you can barely see my finger, but it's still there, except my finger's actually traveling from here through this space to get here. We're talking about something that goes like this, and then it's gone, then it's here, it's gone, then it's here.
Which is very common UFO sighting description.
Yeah. Now keep also in mind this. This is something else that's very important to understand. They don't have engines. They don't need them. They just need particle accelerators and the ability, going to your navigation point, to know where the entry points are into our 4-dimensional space. This means that an advanced species is very likely one of the greatest cartography map makers in the whole universe, because they have to know where everything is that they're coming into.
Yeah.
They don't want to materialize inside solid rock. Okay.
Well, this is where a quantum computer would be really helpful.
And they probably have that going on.
Yeah.
So the point is, they can never. I honestly believe this is the only way they could be doing this.
It couldn't be through a warp technology.
Warp technology would work, except for the fact that it requires immense amount of energy, right? The Alcubierre drive. Okay, the warp drive, as people call it, is the Alcubierre drive.
Sure.
And Miguel Alcubierre came up with it in 1994, and he figured, hey, we'll create the ability to compress the universe in front of us and lengthen the distance from our origin and where we are. Yep. And that made this weird compression envelope that the ship doesn't feel because it's inside a warp bubble. The problem with that, I know it's not intuitive, trust me, but the problem with it is that the Alcubierre drive required so much energy. I mean,
like the sun energy, right? Like
well, almost. I mean, it needed the energy equivalent of Jupiter converted to energy. Okay. Now, what does that mean? If you take Einstein's mass equivalence formula, E equals mc squared. Okay, that's the formula for objects traveling slower than the speed of light. It's actually a longer equation that breaks down to E equals mc squared at the end, which is kind of interesting. At speed of light, then the MC squared goes away, and you have this Planck's constant times a frequency. Well, anyway,
Yeah, let's not get into Planck's.
We're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
Planking is fun, but you just got to only do it for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
So if you look at equals MC squared, the energy result you get in that from that E, right? That's almost an E. Yeah, there's the E. Look at that. There's the E. Okay. The E here, okay, the energy is MC squared. So the mass of Jupiter is required times the speed of light squared to get the energy required to make one, count them, one warp bubble. All right. It's a colossally stupendous amount of energy that is just not practical.
Especially if you're traveling from point A to point C to point D, then, oh my gosh.
And it is traveling from point A to point B and traveling through every point in between. That's what it's doing, effectively. But it's doing it in a way that you're warping space and basically pulling it past you as fast as you could muster with the bubble. Now, you've got to do that over and over and over again until you get to your destination. And so, whereas and that's why even Kubier himself said it was a kind of a thought problem, and it got shelved. But then along comes Sonny White at Eagle Works Laboratories some years later, and he caught on to it. Said, it's pretty cool. And he started looking at it, and there's a torus around the ship that generates this warp bubble. Well, he monkeyed with the dimensions and geometry of the torus, and he came up with a new torus that required 10 to the 25 times less mass to actually accomplish the warp bubble.
Yeah.
And that, if in practical terms, it turned out to be something along the lines of the mass of the Voyager spacecraft could be used, converted to energy.
Yeah.
Well, it's still not less, but it's colossal. And it's still on its own. Yeah.
Maybe it's one more step along the way. I have to ask you a question from Rodrigo regarding your theory. He said, does Mark think the Casimir effect and the extraction of energy from the vacuum may be a feasible source of energy in the future?
It depends how much we can get out, Rodrigo, because right now, there's not a lot of energy associated with that effect. There's a lot of hardware associated with finding it and generating it, but there's not a lot of results, not a return that's really feasible at the moment. I think that there's a lot of things the universe throws at us that aren't going to be able to be used, but are interesting discoveries nonetheless. Yeah. Carl Sagan said it best. Out there somewhere is something just waiting to be known. I mean, I just love that because
you should do a book reading in that voice. I love it.
I'll read my book of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I used Sagan's quote in there. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love it.
So I don't think that effect, Rodrigo, would actually be very helpful at this point. Okay. And by the way, I just got to correct you. It's not my theory. This theory of Kaluza-Klein gravitons has been around for a long time, and a very good friend of mine, Robert Schroeder, another guy you'd enjoy in your program. Bob came up with this idea, and he reprised the Kaluza-Klein hypothesis, and he added some meat to it. He wrote a book called Solving the UFO Enigma. Okay, so now the book may not be in print. He might have one if you ask him, but he lives in Massachusetts. He's a great guy. And when I heard his lecture on this, I thought, this is actually making some sense to me. I read his book. And his book isn't for the faint of heart, okay? It's not written for everyday people. It's written for physicists. It's written for astronomers and astrophysicists. And so he uses a lot of equations and advanced mathematics in it. And it's a short paperback. I mean, it's not that big, okay? But he does cover the concept quite well. And I've talked to him substantially about it. So he's the guy that got me going on this, and then I've added to it with my own examinations and experiences. And I think that it's really an amazing possibility.
Okay, let's continue with this line of questioning then. So when a ship travels minutes at nearly the speed of light, returns home, many years have passed for the observer. Does that mean the observer sees the ship going at conventional speed instead of blasting away?
Here's the way that works, okay?
Great questions, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. If the ship is moving at light speed and you're on the Earth watching it go by, okay, you're not going to see a ship traveling by unless it's really, really far out there and you
Yeah.
actually can see it moving through the sky at light speed. You can't see light moving. It takes 8.5 minutes for the light to get here from the sun and just over a second to get here from the moon. So it's got to be really far away and be really, really bright for you to see it traveling. We've seen light echoes in space that are, thousands and thousands of light years away. We actually watch the expanding halo of light moving out from a supernova explosion. Okay.
Yeah.
If you were there, it would be moving really fast. So let's suppose you could somehow see the light moving. Okay. If you looked at the guy looking out the window who's waving at you, you'd see this for your entire life. He would be frozen.
For podcasters, he has a hand frozen on screen.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm looking at, and it just frees my motion. Yeah, because to the observer, time has stopped for him. Okay, for the guy going by in the rocket. For the guy in the rocket, he's waving, and the Earth's long gone, and he might wave 5 times and be at his next destination. Okay, like in 4 minutes, he could be to Mars. When Mars is closest to us, and so in that regard, he could wave for 4 minutes. But if you went, he's waving at 4 minutes. He waves for that 4 minutes. 4 minutes to him, he travels a much, much, much higher distance. But for us, it takes him 4 minutes to get there. This is, again, this relativity is really troublesome to make it as an intuitive thing.
But it's also, isn't it just like amazing and wondrous and fascinating? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is, Alan. I'm telling you, it's really cool.
All right. So last question of the evening from Jingus. Would these starships need some type of forward deflector to move those pesky micrometeorites out of the way? Or would the gravity bubble protect from these objects?
Okay. In the Alcubierre drive, yes, you're going to get this buildup of energy like bugs in the windshield with Alcubierre. Okay. And you have to have a way of shuttling them away. And that's why Miguel Alcubierre did work with Froning, who's a mathematician or physicist, and they came up with the Froning-Alcubierre variant. The Froning drive with Alcubierre's concept actually wicks off the energy, kind of like shields from Star Trek. Okay, so that when you get to the destination and you come out of that warp bubble, you don't have enough energy literally to blow away the entire solar system that you're in. Because that's what would happen otherwise. Yeah, it could actually be an ultimate weapon. But look at the bottom line here is that if they use the other technology where they're just punching out and punching in to discrete coordinates, you don't have to worry about that. And they can make 90-degree turns in the sky at high speed. And inside their craft, all they see is the scenery changing outside the window. They feel nothing. Because to them, they're just disappearing from one coordinate and appearing at another, with a short stop at the 5th dimension.
Right. And I have one last question myself. So based on my own personal...
Up ahead. It's the Twilight Zone.
And here's another thing. This is actually more biological. So we discussed earlier how a UFO, right, it might appear here and then suddenly appear here, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible that 2 different people looking at that same phenomena, one might actually see a streak and one might see it kind of just disappear and reappear?
For the observers on the Earth, this phenomenon is going to be rather discreet. They're going to see something shimmer and disappear. And they'll both see exactly the same thing, but from different perspectives. Yeah. This one over here might not see the air that gets eaten by the micro black holes as much as this one over here because of some other phenomena, right?
Right. So it could still look a little different.
Slightly, yeah, I can say it could be slightly different, but the end result's the same. If there was something here and it just went into the 5th dimension right here, it would literally be gone and it would not be here.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing I'll mention, and I know we're getting short on time, I'm sorry. The last thing I'll mention is when you look at the possibility of USOs, unknown submerged objects, okay, on the sub trip I had decades ago, we saw I was just a seasick guy on the boat that was there for, thank you, Mr. Navy, for having me go along. Best fun I had being seasick. When I was sitting in the sonar room, and when the thing zoomed through the radar sonar, the kid called it a con that there was a fast mover, and the XL came over, and as I mentioned, they calculated the speed at several hundred miles an hour underwater. Now, how can that be? Easily, because if they're going and doing this oscillation I told you about between fifth dimension and our dimensions, they're coming in like they're doing that dink, dink, dink. And you see how my hand's moving across my finger? Mm-hmm. That makes a line, a logical line. So they're just popping in at the next coordinate in underwater. And to our instruments, it looks like a line.
Interesting.
They might be going 3 feet or a foot or 8 inches
at a time. Yeah.
Because they only go in a little bit into that fifth dimension.
Yeah.
If you go in a lot, they go, boom, they'll take right off.
Mark, this hour went by crazy fast.
It did.
It did. I'm so happy to have you on tonight. I really am. It's been too long, and I hope.
I know, it's been great, man. You're just a good host and a good friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here. Yeah, and I know you're very busy, but hopefully we'll have you back sooner next time. And for everybody listening, I put Mark's Facebook Sky Tour live stream with Marc D'Antonio link in the chat, and then I'll add it to the description later. Mark, if you could leave us with just one thought. Doesn't even have to be UFO related. What would it be?
I say this often to people, don't forget to look up when you go out, okay? Because you could be the one to find it, okay? There's a lot of things out there, all right? And I know that we're consumed with looking down at our phones like we're doing right now. But take the time to look up. That's what Sky Tour is about, I created skytourlive.org. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. I did that because I wanted to encourage people to start looking up and enjoy the night with us. Some of your folks in the chat are members of our Sky Tour live stream.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's pretty cool. But
Mark,
Al, this has been great. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you. You are the real deal. And, obviously for MUFON, they are very lucky to have you, and you really are a great representative for MUFON. And I'm honored to be along the ranks, lower ranks, but along the ranks with you.
Hard, he's blowing smoke. Hey, thanks, Alan. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks, Mark. We'll definitely have to have Mark back again. And thank you, everybody, for your questions tonight. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are so smart, and I have to say that these kind of conversations are really important. I know oftentimes we want to talk about just the most fantastical stories, and that's cool too. But having a deeper understanding, a scientific understanding of the phenomena, I think will get us much closer to the truth. So again, thank you all for joining tonight. If you like this podcast, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, give it a good review, and rate it as high as possible, because all those matter. And especially if you are an iTunes listener, I would love to get a couple of those ratings up, and on Spotify as well. Right now we're at 4.4 ratings, and love to get that to 4.6 if you can help out there. And thank you to the UNX Network and Margie and Race over there, two very supportive people that are running an amazing network that it too is growing phenomenally. Okay, that's it, everyone. Thanks so much. Peace and love to you all. And until next time, I'll see you on the flip side.
It's good to be an earthling. I wish more of us would think of ourselves that way.
And I don't have a problem with skeptics. It's debunkers that are on some other level that I don't understand.
Essentially an inference of a change in local gravity.
Saucer shape craft, and they're hovering over the water.
Blue Book Special Report 14. The better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be unexplainable.